What they didn't discuss, and I don't know if this has been clear in the discussion so far because we've talked about it a little bit, is what her fucking music sounds like.
Yes.
Oh my God. They mentioned slightly in the Rolling Stone article that it's, there's elements of jazz and hip hop. And then in the Spin article that came out a year before that, they mentioned that she liked hip hop, but they literally did not speak word one. If you had never heard her music before and you bought the issue of Spin, you would be forgiven for reading the article and be like, I have no idea what kind of music this is.
The funny thing is that you say jazz and hip hop, but I'm like, it sounds like musical. At least the early albums, it sounds like musical music.
Yeah.
In as much as musicals are jazzy, or even at this time probably much less hip hop influenced, but it sounds like cabaret influenced music. And I think that people say that if it's hip hop influenced, I don't see that as much as cabaret influenced.
Yeah, I think some of the drums were vaguely like breakbeaty, but like that's,
and that they're heavily rhythmic, but
so is a lot of things.
So are a lot of things. I see that more as like from a more like dance background.
Yeah. So I
just think that there's like a cadre of music writers around this time. Certainly not all of them who are like who are just like trying to process things and just looking at music and being like, is this rock or is this hip hop or is this woman
or is it? Yes, that is. That's what the only description of her music in the Spin article was confessional singer-songwriter.
Confessional singers, which is why, as I was searching for words, you had to put that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it is funny that becomes a genre in and of itself, regardless of what it sounds like.
I do think, especially in this portion of the 90s, I guess this is like the post-Lilith Fair type of commercial lane for this type of music that is like, oh, there is a viable pop lane, commercial critical pop lane for confessional singer-songwriter that's either rocky or whatever Fiona Apple is musically, or or country if you're Shania Twain.
Yeah, Shania Twang.
Shania Twainy.
It has a certain Shania Twang about it.
It does have a certain Shania Twang.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's, that I've come to the end of that. The 90s magazine cover stories, which is just like, what if girl but song?
Song girl sad?
Song girl sad? Song girl thin, crazy, and sad?
Song girl sad or song girl mad?
Song girl complicated.
Truly, why she have to go and be so complicated?
Okay, so that's, New York based, complicated, performing / resentful of that performance, young Fiona Apple.
Sure.
Fast forward many years, you get the New Yorker profile. She is living in Venice in California.
Venice Beach.
She rarely leaves her house.
Okay.
She basically only takes walks with her dog on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
She used to do a residency at Largo in LA and has stopped doing that.
The home of podcast, all those great podcast recordings we know and love.
Yeah, it's funny. Does she have like musician buds besides like her own personal band? Maybe, but she always has associated herself with like other types of performers. She dated David Blaine for some time. David Paul Thomas Anderson.
She did Paul Thomas Anderson?
Oh, did she?
Really?
She's friends with Quentin Tarantino. Like she did these videos with Zach Galifianakis. Like I think she has more of an affinity maybe for hanging out with like non-music
for like the cool LA scene.
Yeah. If she was at Largo that much, she probably hung out with every comedian.
Literally every.
You know what? She dated Louis C.K. for a little bit.
Did not know that.
Sent him she sent him an encouraging note after he came back from cancellation, saying, dig deeper. Remember when the reports of his first couple of stand-up sets after coming back from all the dick waving, and just kind of like hacky jokes kind of about it. Mm-hmm. She wrote him a note being like, I think you can do better to like think about what you did and like channel that into something.
I don't have much imagination that for CK's level of introspection around this. I think that he is weirdly a heavily introspective person, but I think that he is also very like blocked about certain parts of his ways.
Clearly.
But I would hope that a letter from Fiona Apple saying, bro, you can go a little deeper than this would be affecting.
Yeah, your ex-GF Fiona. But that later in the piece, she acknowledges that she did that, and then she is texting Emily Nussbaum being like, he's so wait, I didn't write this down, but I need to look it up.
When you said Paul Thomas Anderson's, because we were talking about Largo, for a second I was thinking of P.F. Tompkins.
Right.
Which is why I was so surprised. Paul Thomas Anderson makes more sense.
So here's the actual text, because I don't want to misrepresent it. This is from the New Yorker article. Apple was briefly involved with the comedian Louis C.K. After the Times published an expose of his sexual misconduct in 2017. She had faith that C.K. would be the first target of #MeToo to take responsibility for his actions, maybe by creating subversive comedy about shame and compulsion. When a hacky stand-up set of his was leaked online, she sent him a warm note urging him to dig deeper. One of the women C.K. harassed was Rebecca Corey, a stand-up comedian who founded an advocacy organization for pit bulls, Stand Up for Pits. Apple began working with the group. She is a pit bull owner.
Sure.
And once she got to know Corey, she started to see C.K. in a harsher light. The comedy that she had admired for his honesty now looked, quote, like a smoke screen, unquote, she said. In a text, she told me that if C.K. wasn't capable of more severe self-scrutiny, quote, he is useless, unquote. She added, quote, I shake when I have to think and write about myself. It's scary to go there, but I go there. He is so weak.
Ah, yes. I mean, that's accurate, right? And I think that smoke screen thing is what I was trying to say earlier, is that he has a certain level of introspection, but I think that's what makes his comedy good. But it seems, in retrospect of the past few years' revelations, it seems that it is all part of creating an elaborate facade of justification.
Yeah.
That if I am this honest, quote unquote honest about certain things, that allows me to indulge other, as she says, shames and compulsions.
Yes.
Which is, as she identifies, enormously disappointing.
Yes.
From somebody who apparently or seemingly talks so honestly about themselves.
Yeah. That's why there is a difference. I'd seen this in some sort of discourse recently that there's a difference between being vulnerable and just being good at talking about things that sound vulnerable.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that was his
in the
trick.
final diagnosis that CK is the latter.
Yes. So that's there is a slight Brita from Community flavor of like, well, now that I've hung out with the woman that this guy harassed and we have these pit bulls in common, now I realize he's a bad guy. I don't, it's clearly not as simple as that, but it is funny.
Yeah.
I can excuse racism, but not animal cruelty.
Yeah, exactly.
So she's anyway. We're What is she doing? She's in Venice. She's kind of a recluse, a hermit.
She's simply vibing.
But the music, she hasn't lost. The music still comes to her. It just takes literally years to write and record it. And so Emily Nussbaum is seeing her kind of in the midst of, at the tail end of recording.
Sure.
And as it's being like mixed and turned into a real album.
God, I'm sure I'm just realizing that the last song off the Idler Wheel is called Largo, which I assume.
Yes, that is what it's named for. And apparently that used to, I'm not sure if it still does, autoplay on the Largo website in a sort of MySpace way. That was noted in the
I've never been to Largo. One of the times when we go to LA, I feel like I should make a sojourn there as a real podcast mecca.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, I cannot imagine what the back end of the producing back end of something like Fetch the Bowl Cutters looks like. The number of clips and tracks and versions and takes and just scraps of sounds that they must have to like the organizational process behind putting something like this together must be mind-boggling to anybody who is not Fiona Apple or her like core team of recordists and engineers.
Yes. I mean, I'm sure you have to basically be speaking the Fiona Apple language which you learn only after years of like frustration.
So you want to swap in Forks 10A take 3 for Forks 7B take 1? Yes, please. All right, let me get Drive 6 out and find these files.
The way the recording studio is described, there's a beat up wooden desk and a computer on which Apple recorded tracks using GarageBand. There's a mic stand and a Day of the Dead painting of a smiling female skeleton holding a skeleton dog. Every surface from the shelves to the floor was covered in a mulch of battered percussion instruments, bells, wooden blocks, drums, metal squares, mulch.
It rocks that people on, and again, this just goes into how the technology does not make the music, that Fiona Apple is recording this album using GarageBand.
Yes. And no, I mean, I will be the first to say that I think the like anti-auto-tune, technological manipulation of vocals and instruments is inherently a bad thing. I don't think it is a bad thing. I like a lot of auto-tune music.
Yeah, of course.
But Fiona Apple is, the joke on YouTube comments is like, auto-tune has left the chat. Auto-tune was never in the chat for Fiona Apple.
Yes.
And especially not, Emily Nussbaum described it like a Dog Me 95 filmmaker. She rejects digital smoothing.
Sure, yeah.
Which I think is cool. You can hear, like, it sounds like it. It's that, and I think that's refreshing. I don't know. It's nice to have both. It's nice to have your hundreds of gecs
Yes.
doing the auto-tune thing, and then you have Fiona Apple, who you can hear literally her vocal cords going like it's great.
Everything is very clear on a Fiona Apple recording.
Yep. One interesting thing that I wanted to call out for you is that, even though this profile is written 20 years later by a woman with a more of a woman's radical sensitivity, dare I say, they still bring the ex-boyfriend into it. They ask, Jonathan Ames actually comes over to Fiona's house and they like have a little chat, which is like such a weird scene. You like Jonathan Ames for being the creator of the HBO show Bored to Death.
Great, wonderful show. Again, her dating record is so funny. It's like Zach Galifianakis was in Bored to Death. She is just like running through the like goofy alt artists and comedians of the aughts.
Well, just funny because, especially in the early way she was portrayed as this like tortured soul. And obviously I think comedians are tortured souls too. But I don't know. It just seems like she hangs out with like
sensitive goofballs.
Funny weirdos. I think she's a funny weirdo as well.
And it makes like even the outliner in that, Paul Thomas Anderson, went on to marry Maya Angelou, a goofball.
Yeah. So
Maya Rudolph. Sorry, sorry, but she quoted Maya Angelou earlier.
Yeah, she did.